Hi everyone, welcome back to Creative Coders Toolkit. Today we're going to be making a couple more just like really basic abstractions, but we're going to be using a really cool technique to make them. Let's hop in to Pure Data here. New sketch. Give us a nice place to work with. And there's three objects that I want to make today, and they all use a similar feature, and we're going to get into what that feature is. But right now I want to make sure that those three objects that I have in mind don't already exist, like especially in Cyclone, because at least two of these items are like straight objects that are just in Max. MSP and Cyclone might have them. I doubt my version of Cyclone will, but we'll see. The first one is called Vol, and that one doesn't exist. Something called Easy DAC, which again, great, does not exist. And then this one I really don't think will exist because it's something that I sort of came up with or made up myself. And I always wonder what I'm gonna name it, because I don't know, it just is something that I like to have because it's only like three objects wired together, but it's so nice to just be able to like drop and place it. So I've called it in the past enveloper. But great, none of these exist, so we'll be able to just go ahead and drop right into this. So we're going to save this one as in our abstraction folder. We're going to save this one. We're going to start on this volume object, or vol tilde. It is going to need an audio inlet, and it is going to need an audio outlet. And then in the middle, going to need a couple of things. It's going to need our amplifier stage, our multiplication tilde object, and it's going to need a vertical slider. And that's it. Like, this is literally all of the components of this object here. And we can go ahead, right, that is not plugged into there. This just goes straight down to here, and this comes straight out. Now this, we're going to change some properties. We want it to go from 0 to 1, because that's just a multiplication object that's allowing us to go from totally off to just regular volume. We could also make one of these that is, we can have it go higher than 1, but that means that we're amplifying. And you have to be really careful with that, because if something is already really loud and you amplify it more, it can clip and distort and just be really, really bad. And we can also change what we want it to look like. So we can make it, maybe let's make it less tall. Make it kind of stubby. We can even make it a little bit wider. But that's great. We'll hit OK. So now this goes from 0 to 1 instead of 0 to 127, or what you would call basically like MIDI parameters, which is 7-bit plus a signed bit at the end. That's way more than I'll probably ever get to in one of these videos. Maybe way later once I understand it better myself. But yeah, so this is our object here. And then if we right click and do the properties of the full sketch, so instead of the properties of just this object, the properties of the whole thing, we're going to do something called graph on parent, and then hit apply. And so what we see here, let's leave that there. So what we see here is this red box. And that means that when I instantiate this object, it's going to show up as whatever is in this box. And so we can place like where it is and how big it is. So X range, we're going to go, let's do like 30. And the Y range we'll do, so this is, I'm leaving like 5 pixel margins on either side. And so if the thing is 80 tall, then we'll go 90 and then make it a clean 100. And then just drop this guy into place, and then the arrow keys will let you nudge things just ever so gently. We'll try that and we'll see how that looks. File save. And now if we open a new sketch and drop a volume object, this is what it looks like. This is just what the object itself looks like. I underguessed some of my tolerances on the sides. Let's make it a little bit wider. I will make it taller. And then we can just get this object in here because I want it to... Yeah, there we go. That's better. I can always like dial in some of those tolerances again, but it is nice to have the slider itself be... Oops. Oh, what in the world did I do? No. Okay, so we'll save this one. And then hop over here. There we go. And then here is our volume object. Like I was saying, we can play with those tolerances. We can get it to be smaller, especially if we find ourselves like seeing that it's just a little bit too big. We can make any part of it a different size. We can make the slider smaller. We can make it taller. We can make it shorter. We can make it less wide. So we have the ability to control how this looks. But ultimately, it's just this object that gives us really quick and easy control over affecting something's volume. Like really easily. So there's our first abstraction. Now, let's make an easy DAC. And this one just needs we'll go with 2 audio inlets. Feeding a DAC object. And then we need a toggle box feeding a message. And that message is to turn on and off DSP. And if we go in the help file for this one, it does not mention it. So if we go into the help file for any like musical object, yeah, so here's PD, DSP, and then 0 or 1 in this message box will do exactly what we need to. And so if we put a message box here and go PD, DSP, and then $, I think F1 will get the result that we want, but let's test it. So toggle, toggle. Okay, nope. Not quite. Let's try this. Oh, you know what I forgot? The semicolon. So now, boom, yep, DSP on. Okay. So now let's drop that $sign F1 back in there and see if that was all we had messed up. Nope. Let's try $1. All right, there it is. Sometimes it's the expression boxes that like to see the F for floating point. Different things have different rules. Just know that that's something to keep an eye out for. Okay, but... And then here's our object. Like, it's literally that simple. All we wanted here was an object that is basically a DAC object with a toggle for turning the full pure data DSP on and off. And so we can make this a bigger toggle box. That's great. And then we'll do our graph on parent and see where the box ended up. These, as with any object, can go anywhere. What we specifically want is for that box to be like prominent. And so if we know, oops, hello, I did not want help. I wanted properties. My right click is really sensitive, so it likes to unclick itself. I hope that your mouses don't have that problem, but mine super duper does. So this toggle box right here is currently 25 pixels. So let's do a margin of 10 on each side with an extra 10 above for the name, because it's anytime you graph on parent, it's going to show that. Even hide object name and arguments, even when I click this, it doesn't usually work. I'll try it and I'll show you, but usually it doesn't work. So let's do 35 wide, and then if it's 35 and then an extra 10, let's do 45 for that one, and then use our arrow keys to just sort of guide that in there. Looks great. And we'll hide the object name and we'll see if that works. So then when we save this, this is our EasyDAC object. Eyeballing it, that looks okay. We'll see how it instantiates. So now let's drop an EasyDAC object here. Well, hey, it actually decided to work all of a sudden. Okay. And save and close. All right. Like sometimes it's nice to see the name. For this one, it's super unnecessary. Well, it's up to you. When you make your own abstractions, you can decide if you like to see the label or if you want to see it way cleaner. Some objects, if you design them really well, you'll be able to look at it and know immediately, like, oh, I know exactly what that is. The problem with the volume and EasyDAC object is that, like, they just look like a vertical slider and a toggle button, respectively. And so that doesn't necessarily tell you everything you might want to know about them. So I'm going to keep them with the name. This one, I am going to try to center that box up, and then I might even add just a little extra tolerance on top and then scooch this guy down. Save it and come back. Now it's too far left. Okay, one over to the right and save. We'll do one more. Okay. You yourself will probably have to finagle, just like me. DSP turning on and off, and a volume slider. So now, with these two objects, let's throw in a pink noise generator, put it through this volume thing, and then the audio out of here into this easy DAC. Turn our audio on, and then drag it up. Oh, hello. Kind of loud. But yeah, so this is just a volume slider that allows us to control the audio from this thing. The third and last object we're going to make today is, like you saw earlier, something called an enveloper. It's not really the name for it. It's something that I just sort of gave a name to because I needed to. But if you drop a VU meter and then look at the help file, see, you can't just drag audio to this VU meter. It needs non-audio sample rate information. And so the object that allows you to do that is this envelope object. And then if we go to the help file for this, takes a signal and outputs its RMS amplitude in decibels. And then if you want to be able to read this with 1 normalized to 100 dB. And then, so the way that you would read this is you send audio to here, enveloper object looks at it, and then, yeah, the VU meter. Ooh, very loud. Okay. Let's try. Whoops. I suspect this needs the space in between it. There we go. All right. So now this envelope follower object is showing RMS amplitude in terms of decibels, with 1 normalized to 100. And so if we if we minus that 100, then we're actually able to go from this negative amount to the 0 amount. It's just the difference in how, like, RMS is calculated versus like peak level and audio. It's a huge mess. There's other videos that talk about this. All you need to know is that it's the difference between like dB measuring and RMS measuring. But now this is an object that we can use. So now we can see that this pink noise generator is just hovering at this like negative 12 dB range. And then what you saw when I was controlling it with the volume is that you could actually see it go up and down. And so what we're going to design is an enveloper object. We'll save this as, whoop, no, don't overwrite it. Whoop. You don't necessarily need the tilde. You literally never need to name things based on that, But if you have an object where the leftmost inlet, the main hot inlet, is taking audio rate, is taking sound signal, it's usually a good idea to name it with the tilde, because then you know that it is an audio object. It's the way all of the built-in objects are formatted, so it's usually a good idea to sort of follow that concept. And so I will name it enveloper with a tilde, just so I know that it's taking in audio rate. Again, so audio coming in, and then it's literally just this stuff. And then when we graph on parent and hide the name because we don't need it, and apply. So now what we need to do is design all of this in such a way that we get our VU meter just nice and in this red box. That width is a little much. Let's try 60. That's better. And then for our height, we can just sort of play around until we get right in. So we'll hit OK. We'll save this, and then let's try creating that object. And that's what it looks like. And so you can just use that. You can place it different places in your sketch. Like if you're like, why is this not getting sound? Where in my sketch is sound disappearing? So you can just, drag this around and hook it up and see like, oh, it's just really quiet, or it's not getting any sound at all. It's also a great idea to throw one of these right at the very end in front of your DAC object. And you can see like, am I clipping? Are my left and right equal? Like different ways of troubleshooting problems that you might have somewhere in your sketch in terms of audio volume and balance and all of that. I just like having the object there and having a visual representation of the sound that's moving through my sketch. These are 3 of my absolute favorite abstraction objects. All 3 of them use the idea of graph on parent. Graph on parent is a really powerful tool for making really, really great abstractions, because like these 3 in particular are so simple, but they are made so much better by the ability to just have like this volume object. Otherwise you would have to have a vertical slider outside of the object, and at that point you would just use your multiplication box and a vertical slider. There's your 2 objects that make up this one. But this one is just so much easier. Like you can just drag and drop it somewhere and then control the volume. Same thing with this Easy DAC. It's just a DAC object with a built-in like toggle to turn on and off DSP. And this guy is just replacing 3 objects. But the ability to just make one object and plop it in place is so nice. And like, these abstractions, they don't need to be pretty on the inside. It helps you in the long run to make them pretty on the inside so that you can visually see what's going on. If something is misbehaving, if you need to troubleshoot something, opening up that abstraction and being instantly lost gets you nowhere. So we'll just save this guy. But yeah, I hope that this episode was helpful for you. These are 3 of my most used objects, and next time we'll get into some more sketches that utilize these objects in cool ways.